This is Tiffany Vu,
And Annie Scott.
and we will be presenting our Psych and Film project covering the film Margot at the Wedding.
The main character, Margot, is a successful writer who is assumed to have borderline personality disorder, although it has not been explicitly confirmed. Margot gets invited to her sister's wedding back in their childhood home, situated in a quiet small town in Long Island, New York. Trouble arises when Margot disapproves of and meddles into her sister's marriage. Margot struggles with her emotional irritability and overly judgmental personality causes her relationship and the relationships of those around her to become strained. Because this event occurs in relatively modern times and in the US, it is likely that Margot will be correctly diagnosed since mental health is more culturally valued here. The main character does admit that she goes to see a therapist, yet there are no scenes depicting a therapy session. Hypothetically, if she were to be diagnosed, it would be with borderline personality disorder. The diagnosis of BPD is more likely to be prominent in Western cultures, but can still be diagnosed in Eastern cultures and other countries. This is partially due to the topic of mental health being taboo and rarely covered in media outside of the US. One social stigma behind BPD is that society tends to avoid individuals who are associated with this disorder due to negative perspectives.
Our first example of our main character Margot portraying these symptoms is in a scene where Pauline talks about the most recent paper Margot published and how Margot is gaining popularity. However, Margot has a hard time accepting her sister's compliment. This shows that Margot struggles to see value in herself, and in a similar scene, she refuses to accept a gift from her husband for the same reason. Throughout the film, Margot jumps back and forth between moments where she is overly prideful and moments on the exact opposite of the spectrum. This indicates that she has a symptom of identity disturbance, which is marked by periods of an unstable sense of self-image. Our second example is in a scene where Margot is being confronted for giving away Pauline's secret. Margot denies it and makes up an excuse. This shows that Margot lies to keep face and is a hypocrite herself for criticizing other people when in reality she herself is not perfect. She may or may not see her own flaws. Throughout the film, Margot seems to struggle with keeping certain aspects of her family's personal life private. This results in the breakdown of her relationship with her family members and their distrust in her. When confronted about her actions, Margot makes an excuse, and her erratic behavior and inability to admit fault negatively impacts her relationships. Our final example is in a scene where Margot tells her son that Pauline, her sister, transferred her mental problems to her, when in reality, Margot was just facing the consequences of her actions for meddling into other people's relationships. This is an example of her projecting her problems to others to avoid blame. When she sees her mother and other sister arrive, she quickly turns around and avoids them. This shows that she distances herself from other people that she disagrees with or dislikes, even her own family members, again showing unstable relationships and isolated behavior. One symptom that Margot doesn't show, however, is frantic effort to avoid abandonment. If anything, she seems to be exhibiting avoidant behavior towards her husband and other family members. Margot exhibits symptoms that are associated with BPD, such as a pattern of instability in interpersonal relationships, self-image, irritability, and impulsivity. The proposed treatment plan is psychotherapy in the form of talk therapy, with supplemental medication if needed. Studies show that talk therapy and certain mood stabilizing drugs are very effective at treating BPD, and it is the main form of treatment used today by most patients. Other treatment options include hospitalization for severe symptoms. Margot's symptoms are not overly severe enough to require hospitalization. Therefore, this method of treatment is most suitable for her portrayed symptoms. An ethical concern could be that Margot may refuse treatment and cannot be forced to accept it. Because of her need to protect her self-image and negative outlook on drugs, she may refuse to seek further treatment.
We believe that this film depicts a realistic example of borderline personality disorder. Overall, the symptoms that Margot is experiencing aligns with those that are associated with BPD. The portrayal of disorders in films helps give us a glimpse into the lives of people who suffer from personality disorders and gives viewers a better understanding.